There's a prison in Colorado where inmates stop screaming not because they're at peace, but because they realize no one's listening. ADX Florence doesn't make headlines. It doesn't have riots. It doesn't need guard towers with snipers.
The president says he wants to close the prison at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, early next year.
Because nothing moves, nothing speaks, nothing escapes. This isn't about punishment, it's about deletion. Psychological annihilation executed in silence and concrete. The inmates inside, they don't count years. They count how many words they've said out loud this month. ADX doesn't hold the worst people in America. It holds the people America doesn't want to talk about and make sure they never speak again.
He's playing a game with someone. If he's doing that, he's doing it for the reaction. He's doing it for whatever. He is the real deal.
ADX Florence doesn't have guards walking the yard. It doesn't have inmates playing basketball or trading stories on the tier. It doesn't need to. This place was never designed like a prison. It was built like a containment unit, like they were storing something radioactive. You don't walk into ADX. You're transported in silence, shackled head to toe, escorted by a convoy that treats you like a nuclear code. And when those steel doors close behind you, you don't hear them. You feel them. In your teeth, in your chest. It's the sound of everything you knew disappearing.
Your connections to the outside, your family, through phone calls, visits, all those are...
The layout is brutal by design. There's no main yard, no cafeteria, no library. You eat, sleep, and exist inside a concrete box, 8 by 10 feet, sealed. The walls are poured concrete reinforced with steel. The bed is a concrete slab with a thin foam pad. The desk and stool, bolted down. Even the mirror is polished steel with no glass allowed. You don't get to touch a doorknob. Doors open remotely controlled from a secure center. You don't know who's watching, but someone always is. There's zero human contact unless absolutely necessary. If you need to move, they clear entire corridors. They don't risk accidents here. They eliminate possibility. And here's the part that most people never realize. ADX Florence isn't about housing dangerous men. It's about rendering them powerless. It doesn't break out into chaos because it's designed to preempt it. Every hallway has no straight line. Every angle is calculated to avoid blind spots. Every surface is resistant to tampering. Every sound is absorbed. Even the air vents are non-removable. You want to pass a note? You can't. You want to speak to someone next door? The walls are soundproof. Try yelling. All you'll hear is your own breath bouncing back. This place isn't for inmates. It's for erasure. And that's the thing. No blueprint can
Side world. Nothing that makes you feel connected to anything or anyone. Your 1 hour of outdoor recreation happens in a concrete enclosure with a grate overhead.
Just luck. It's by engineering. This place wasn't built like a prison. It was built like a reactor containment unit buried in the Rockies. The layout? There are over 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors, each one triggered only by officers stationed in a control center. No keys, no access panels. Guards don't carry anything an inmate could grab, because no one touches anything here. Movement is a privilege, and even then, it's calculated to the second.
Surrounded by concrete walls and topped with a mesh screen, offers a small view of the sky.
Your walk to the general population, if you can even call it that, involves a full tactical escort. Armed officers, multiple checkpoints, and a body scan that makes airport security look like a joke. You're photographed, strip searched, retina scanned. Welcome to ADX. Now here's the twist. Most of the men locked inside, they've escaped from other maximum security prisons. Some of them have even been killed while behind bars guards.
The prison system contributed to the 3 murders he committed. He was held in a specially designed cell.
He was kept in solitary confinement for 36 years before he died. Or Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, he hasn't had a face-to-face conversation in over a decade. He spends 23 hours in his cell, 1 hour in a solo recreation pen with walls too high to see out of. That's considered his outside time. Every corridor is designed with no straight lines. You can't get a running start anywhere. No handrails, no pipes, no air ducts, because even the smallest detail has been considered a potential weapon or escape tool. Every cell has pressure-sensitive floors, so if you try to dig, tamper, or move abnormally, a silent alarm is triggered. Surveillance, infrared, thermal, motion-based. The prison sees more of you than you see of it. And if somehow, by some miracle, you make it outside, you're still trapped inside 6 different perimeter fences laced with motion sensors, taut wire, and gun towers that don't ask questions. Beyond that, miles of open, empty Colorado desert, freezing nights, no cover, no chance. You're not escaping, you're getting buried twice. Even the Bureau of Prisons doesn't call ADX Florence a place of rehabilitation. They call it a clean version of hell. It's the final stop, the place you go when you've exhausted the system's ability to manage you. And it's designed so thoroughly, so mercilessly, that escape doesn't just seem impossible, it seems irrelevant. That's why no one escapes. Not because they can't, but because the place murders the thought before it's even born. ADX Florence cells are designed like coffins, just big enough to exist in, not big enough to live in.
It's not just a prison. It's a fortress designed to break even the hardest of minds.
Fixed window that's deliberately angled toward the sky so you can never see the horizon, because the horizon gives you hope, and hope has no place here. There's no keyhole. The door opens remotely from a control center you never see who's watching. Inside, you get a concrete bed, a metal sink, a non-removable stool, and a shatterproof mirror. You eat all your meals alone on that concrete slab and speak to no one unless authorized. And even then, it's behind bulletproof glass. These aren't cells. They're sealed observation boxes.
I think what I'm most concerned about just snapping one day. Just going off.
Every inch is engineered to eliminate risk, not just of escape, but of suicide, assault, or even self-expression. You can't write on the walls. You can't bang a pipe, because there are none. Everything is tamper-proof, bolted, welded, monitored. The lighting is controlled by staff. Even the toilet can be shut off remotely if they want. Let me tell you about Ramzi Youssef, the man who orchestrated the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. He's been in ADX since the late 90s. For the first 3 years, he refused to speak to anyone. Why? Because there was no one to speak to. The isolation was so intense, so surgically precise, that when a psychologist finally saw him, he reportedly said, "I started hearing voices through the vents. There are no vents." Then there's Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. A former professor turned domestic terrorist. He was placed in ADX, and even a man who chose to live off-grid called it unbearable.
We have hundreds of night vision cameras, hundreds of gates that are electronic.
He once described sensory deprivation as a slow erasure of thought. Thomas Silverstein, who murdered a prison guard with a homemade shank, spent over 3 decades in solitary confinement, mostly at ADX. His cell was custom-built, even more restrictive than standard. They kept the lights on 24/7. Cameras in every corner, no human contact. He wrote letters describing how time lost all meaning and how he could no longer tell when he was awake or dreaming. These cells are more than just rooms, they're labs. Psychological experiments in what happens when you take a person and remove everything, sound, movement, connection, identity, you become a ghost. And that's the point. The system here isn't trying to correct you. It's not trying to rehabilitate you. It's trying to make you forget you ever existed. By the time inmates leave their cells, if they ever do, their sense of self is already fractured. The cell did the job. No screams, no blood, just silence. And in ADX Florence, silence is the sharpest weapon they've got. By law, inmates at ADX Florence are guaranteed 1 hour of exercise per day, 5 times a week. That's what the public hears. But here's the unspoken part. That hour is inside another prison. The recreation yard is a concrete box roughly the size of a walk-in closet enclosed on all sides by 12 to 20-foot high concrete walls. The ceiling? Sealed by steel mesh and razor wire. You don't run laps here. You don't touch grass. There's no basketball hoop. Your hour of freedom is inside what many inmates call the dog run. Some units, like the notorious H unit where the most dangerous prisoners are held, don't even offer that much. Their rec time happens alone in indoor cages, sometimes just a larger concrete cell with a pull-up bar. No sky, no wind, no sun on your face. Your outside is a simulation and you're the test subject. Former ADX inmate Jack Powers spent over 12 years in solitary confinement and testified before the U.S. Senate about what this recreation time really means. He said, "My recreation cage was a concrete box with a grate on top. Sometimes it was snowing. Sometimes it was 100 degrees, but always alone. I talked to myself just to hear a voice." Mahmoud Abu Halima, convicted in the first World Trade Center bombing, described his rec yard this way: "It is like a chimney shaft, only you are at the bottom. You look up and there is a grate with sky behind it. That is your outside world." These yards aren't just physical cages, they're psychological mirrors. The message is clear: there is no world outside this place for you anymore.
You just have to be alone with your thoughts and toss and turn till the morning. For 2 years, I never got a full night's sleep.
And if you misbehave or worse, if you mentally deteriorate, that hour is gone too. Many inmates at ADX have spent months without recreation due to behavior or bureaucratic delay, one misstep, one outburst, back into the box, no questions asked. Even when rec time happens, it isn't yours. Officers escort you in full restraints, wrist shackles, ankle chains, belly cuffs, 2 guards, sometimes 3. The walk from your cell to the rec yard is escorted like a terrorist transfer. Because to them, you still are. And when your hour ends, usually shorter than 60 minutes, the cuffs go back on. The guards say nothing. You return to the same cell, the same silence, the same 24/7 lockdown. And the sickest part? Some inmates refuse rec time, not out of protest, but because the stress of being moved, strip-searched, shackled, and exposed to elements is worse than staying locked in the tomb. So yes, on paper, there's an hour of outdoor time. But in ADX Florence, that hour is just another form of control, a leash, not a privilege. And the yard? It's just another cell, without a ceiling. ADX Florence doesn't watch you the way normal prisons do. There are no guards pacing past your cell every 10 minutes. No friendly warden with a clipboard. Here, surveillance isn't about keeping order. It's about eliminating the opportunity for disorder before it even exists. Every single cell in ADX is under continuous remote video surveillance. Not sometimes. Not when something seems off. 24/7, inside your cell, inside the recreation cage, inside the shower. Every inch of movement is recorded, archived, and analyzed. The cameras, not basic CCTV. ADX uses high-resolution fixed surveillance combined with infrared and thermal imaging in key zones. That means they don't just see you, they detect how much heat your body is giving off.
We can live-time monitor over 50 languages.
This matters, because a body that's pacing, sweating, or moving erratically may signal aggression, and guards act before you do anything. There are motion sensors embedded into the floor in high-security cells. You can't step differently without someone noticing. One former corrections officer, speaking anonymously to the Marshall Project, confirmed that certain cells in H Unit are monitored for even the slightest pattern deviation. If an inmate walks the same line in their cell 5 times a day, and on day 6 they don't check in, they call it predictive monitoring. Not officially, not in press releases, but behind closed doors. The Bureau of Prisons has been implementing behavioral analysis protocols for years, especially in ADX, not to rehabilitate, to prevent. Even your mail is monitored. Every letter you send or receive is read by staff, not scanned read. If it's not in English, it gets translated. If it contains coded language, it's flagged. If it mentions legal strategy, it may be accidentally delayed. Inmates like Eric Rudolph, the Olympic Park bomber, and Richard Reed, the shoe bomber, have had dozens of letters withheld or redacted, sometimes for security reasons, other times with no explanation at all. Even phone calls, if granted, are monitored and recorded. Not a single word you say, write, or move goes unnoticed. ADX is also known to log biometric baselines for certain high-risk inmates, breathing rate, posture, facial tension.
One murder at ADX spoils it for everybody, and so now there is no human contact.
The moment your body language changes even slightly, the system knows. Because in this place, thinking about escape is seen as a threat. And the staff? They're trained not just in de-escalation, but in behavioral profiling. They don't talk to inmates. They study them. There's no privacy, no anonymity, not in your actions, not in your thoughts, not even in your silence. ADX Florence doesn't just see you, it watches who you're becoming. And if it doesn't like what it sees, it tightens the leash. You don't speak to the guards at ADX Florence, and they don't speak to you. Not because they're cruel, but because protocol doesn't require conversation. Communication is a liability. Familiarity is a risk. Every staff member here is trained to prioritize one thing above all: containment. At other federal prisons, you might see corrections officers chatting with inmates, making rounds, even offering casual advice. Not here. At ADX, the staff are trained like they're handling biohazards. No contact unless cleared. No deviation from procedure. Every action is documented, logged, and timed. Everything is done with at least 2 staff members present, sometimes 3, and every movement is done under camera supervision. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons Correctional Services Manual, officers at ADX follow what's called an inmate movement matrix, a system that maps exactly who can be moved, when, where, and under what security configuration. There is no spontaneous decision-making. A single movement, even to the shower, requires full coordination, full restraints, and a cleared corridor. Other inmates are locked down, Doors are remotely controlled. The environment becomes surgical. The guards don't carry keys. They don't carry weapons. They don't carry radios that can be grabbed. Every door opens from a secure control center, and no single person can access a full route alone. That's intentional. You can't bribe someone. You can't overpower someone. No one has enough control to help you, even if they wanted to. One former ADX staff member speaking anonymously to the Denver Post said,
Los Angeles prison gang to act as protection for the Latinos locked up.
You learn not to look them in the eye, not because you're scared, but because you're not allowed to see them as people. The more distance, the safer the shift, and the inmates feel it. Over the years, multiple prisoners have described the guards as ghost handlers. They appear, they operate, they vanish. There's no dialogue, no feedback. Even discipline is clinical. No yelling, no warnings. Just a report and a restriction. This isn't abuse in the traditional sense. It's something colder, smarter, bureaucratized dehumanization. You're not punished. You're processed. Take Faisal Shahzad, the Times Square bomber. In his letters, he described the staff as machines with voices and said he went 6 months without hearing someone say his name. Even during medical checks, staff remain distant. Nurses speak through intercoms. Mental health evaluations happen behind shatterproof Lexan glass. The system does not allow warmth not because of cruelty, but because compassion introduces risk. If an officer builds rapport, an inmate might manipulate it. So the system removes the option entirely. Every staff member is trained to follow the policy, not the person. Because the second you start seeing inmates as people is the second you might hesitate. And in ADX Florence, hesitation is failure. There are no heroes at ADX Florence, no redemption arcs, no chaos to fight through. Just silence, cement, protocol. And behind every steel door, a system that isn't designed to correct or to punish. It's built to forget, not just the inmates, but what they did, who they were, and sometimes who we let ourselves become to contain them. ADX Florence doesn't ask for attention. It doesn't need headlines. It functions perfectly in the shadows. Because when a prison works this well, no one even remembers to look. If you made it this far, you already know this isn't your average prison story. So here's the real question. What does it say about us when the most advanced prison in America is designed to make people disappear? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're into stories they don't want told, you know where to find us next.